Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Inside the Artist. I'm your host, John J. Rupert. It's August 16, 2019, and it's time to step inside the world of author Emiliano Martin. Hello, Mr. Martin. How are you this evening?
Wonderful, John. How are you?
I understand a new book of yours has recently been published. Please tell us about it.
It is a book, not necessarily a biography, about Salvador Dali, the greatest painter of the 20th century. Like I said, it's not a biography, but it is a very detailed, step-by-step exercise of his life. His glorious paintings, his friends through life, his family, his mistakes, everything about Salvador Dali.
Mr. Martin, what made you want to write a book on Salvador Dali?
I have always been intrigued by this great artist. I have read a lot of things about him. I knew him when I was a kid, watching him on television commercials and other interviews, and he was a fascinating character as an individual, who was a very interesting individual.
And what are some of the things you've learned about Salvador Dali while writing this book of yours?
Well, I tried to go back to history and remembered all the things I knew about him, or I heard about him, or I have read about him. And it is a fascinating story. His college days, the friends he made, the enemies he made, obviously his wife, which is a fascinating story, how he lived a life of over 50 years with a woman such as Gala, his wife. The whole thing about Dali is fascinating.
Was there anything that shocked or amazed you about his life or his art?
Well, Dali is, being the controversial figure he has been, the one thing it shocks me is how was he able to be such a great artist and such a disgraceful personality.
What do you hope your readers will take away from your book?
Well, obviously the reader will be amazed to find out details not necessarily known by everybody in the street. Details about his childhood, details about his college days, even details about his military experience since he was drafted into the Spanish army way back in the 1920s, and all these kind of things are going to be a surprise to most of the readers.
I understand in addition to your book, Vulnerable Excellence, there was also a script and a play involved as well?
Yes, I was involved with a play about the life of Salvador Dali a couple of years ago with a friend of mine, producer and writer and poet, Mike Muir. We did put together a play. It was successfully put on a stage. People did like it, and it was a very nice experience overall.
Why do you think Salvador Dali still remains one of the greatest artists of all time?
Definitely there is no other like Dali. The way he painted, the way he mastered the craftsmanship of putting colors on the canvas, Dali was unique, definitely.
Do you think if Salvador Dali would have begun his art in today's time, he still would have been as successful as he was back then?
Definitely. If you put him in the frame of art, in the frame of classic paintings, he still will be, or he still could be one of the greatest painters of our days.
What do you think made him stand out so easily than the other artists back in the day?
I think he was not just different from everybody else, but very cosmopolitan as far as his art. He was able to paint surrealism, cubism, traditional paintings. He just handled everything about a good painting.
After finishing your book and a chance to reflect upon all the work you put into it, has your view on Salvador Dali changed, good or bad?
The problem with Salvador Dali, as everybody knows or think they know, is that there are two Dalis, one the artist, one the human being. The artist was definitely a successful figure in the world. As a person, he had his problems, he had his mishabits, his detours in life that took him to a road of disgrace and even a very sad set of circumstances.
If you had a chance to sit down today with Salvador Dali, what questions would you like to ask him?
Well, one of the questions would be, what do you suggest for the young generation to do about painting?
In addition to all the people that loved him, was there also people that did not like him?
Oh, many people hated his guts. He was not a very nice guy, personally wise. He was very nasty. He could be a very even disgraceful individual. And this is going back to his early 20s and early 30s. This has been throughout his life. People hated his guts.
How did he start out as an artist?
Like everybody else, little by little, showing up his works in local exhibits, and even he started in high school practically. He had a show in high school, and it was a success at that time. But his main accomplishments were done when he decided to make the trip to Paris. At that time, Paris was the epicenter of artists, any artist, dancers, painters, poets, writers of all kind, and there is where he made his name, obviously backed up by the quality of his work.
How did he handle rejection?
He didn't care much about rejection. He's a guy who knew what he wanted and how to get it done. So the critics he obtained throughout his life, he even laughed at them or didn't even care. He was just a nasty guy who did not care about people have to say about him.
And in your book, Vulnerable Excellence, you talk about how he did much more than just paint. What else did he do?
Oh, he was involved in just about everything. He was involved in the design of jewelry. He was involved in the design of furniture. He gave ideas to movie producers to come up with scenes in some of the movies, even in Hollywood. He was involved in clothing designing, like he came up with the Dali shirt. He had furniture. He was involved in just about everything. He also was a writer, even though people think of him as a painter. He was a poet, and as a poet he wrote beautiful lines. And even a philosopher, he wrote philosophical thoughts that even today you have to agree with him 100%.
Like the Mona Lisa, is there one piece of art that defines his work?
It is difficult to define one of his work because he dominated many different schools of painting. I personally like the Last Supper with Jesus Christ and the disciples.
Did he have a favorite painting?
He did have many paintings. Actually, in my book, I list a number of famous paintings by him. If you allow me to look for them,
Sure.
I can give you some of the titles.
And this is in your book, Vulnerable Excellence, correct?
Absolutely. For example, there is a painting I do admire very much. It's called Woman at the Window. It was painted in 1925, and it is the painting of his sister looking through the window, looking outside of the house, and it's just such a beautiful piece of art. The figure of this woman, even though she's painted from behind, is like a real woman. You can feel she's there. You want to touch her. You want to appreciate that she is real. She's one of the best paintings. There are other like the basket of bread, also from 1926. Is a piece of bread in a basket. The basket is on the table, and it is so well done that you really want to pick it up and eat it because it's so appealing to the eye. Beautiful paintings. The Persistence of Memory is perhaps one of his famous paintings. It was at that time in 1931-32, more or less. It was offered more money than any other painting in the world. It was done here in New York City, and it's a masterful painting. Christ of the Saint John of the Cross, which is a picture of Jesus Christ nailed to the cross, is just an outstanding piece of painting. And it's not cubism, it's not surrealism, it's real art. It is like a photography. It is a classical painting. And Dali was the owner of that piece of art.
Did he have any work that he just despised, wish he never created?
I'm sure he did, like every painter, like every artist. There are works that he didn't feel too happy about it. If he did, he never made a comment of which one in particular was the painting that he didn't like. But I'm sure that there was something that he decided to destroy.
Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit more about your book.
Well, my book was published in early August of 2019, not too long ago. It's been out for 2-3 weeks now, and it's on display in the internet. It's been offered. It's on sale in the Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Lulu Press, and other venues in the internet that offer the book to anyone who is interested in acquiring the book through the internet.
If someone wanted to reach out to you, how could they contact you, the artist, the author?
They can go to the internet and simply type Vulnerable Excellence by Emiliano Martin, and the book will pop up right away, and you can select the avenue of your choice.
I understand in addition to this book, you've also published other books. What were some of those?
I have published a long list of other books. Probably I have about 9 titles. The Legacy of a Poet, 511 Aphorisms of My Humor, Dreams and Shadows. I have 9 titles going around, but some of the titles I have run out of copies. And if anybody wants to order more copies, I'm sure they can be found, but at the time there were a restricted number of copies I put out on the market. Sometimes I didn't order more than 100 copies. It was a limited edition, and by now I just run out of copies. But the book could be available, absolutely.
And what would you like to see done with this book? Would you like to see something expand as far as possibly another play, maybe a movie?
Well, the way the book is written is definitely a subject for a play, even a subject for a movie. There is a dialogue, there is a narration, there is a storytelling, very detailed, and it doesn't give room for imagination. Everything is there. So, for example, to make a movie out of it, 80% of the script is in this book. Of course, has to be refined, it has to be tailored to the needs, but the information is here for a movie or for a play.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about the book?
Well, the book, like I said, I'm very proud of it. I've been working on it on and off for over 2 years. Anybody who's interested in learning something new, being entertained while reading a book, and appreciating the work of art of Salvador Dali, definitely. That information is in vulnerable excellence. Nobody will be disappointed by reading the pages of my book.
Mr. Martin, I understand you recently wrote a poem about Salvador Dali and Pablo Picasso?
Yes, I did. As a matter of fact, maybe 2 weeks ago, somebody asked me a simple question. Who was better, Picasso or Dali? And I gave this person the answer to the best of my possibilities. But I wrote a poem about it because I couldn't help it. The subject is Picasso versus Dali. Dali or Picasso. Who is the best? So this is the poem I wrote. I called the poem Two Painters. Two painters of universal appeal. Yet the question about them seems to be always the same. Who was better, Dali or Picasso? Well, they are two different styles in color, flavor, and taste, in substance and provocative intentions for anything that they chased. Although Cubism and Surrealism could be an interchangeable asset, there is a unique seal of craftsmanship applicable to each of them. They were two giants from the same country, two pulsating hearts of greatness, two brilliant minds showing off not just with their personality, but the merit of their work. Of course, Dali came later, wanting to learn from Picasso. But by the end, with ambition of their own, they both walked the sands of success, crossed the finish line of redemption with notoriety and wealth, even self-inflicted pain, underlined by circumstances of some immoral strength, a significant length driven in separate ways.
Wow, it's amazing.
That is what happened between Dali and Picasso. They both went different ways, even though they met at an early age of their lives, but they went different ways, different styles. They both made a lot of money. They both became famous and successful individuals. Unfortunately, life treated them not the way they deserve, because nobody deserves anything bad in life, but in the case of Dali, it was worst.
Did they ever exchange paintings as friends?
No, never. Dali was very proud not to share anything with any other painter. And Picasso was extremely selfish. He wanted everything for himself.
Great. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Mr. Martin, once again, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you,
and
John.
I look forward to more work from you. Thank you, sir.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Have a great day.
Thank you.